Part 3. What would our lives look like if we were truly made whole and secure? What will your environment look like, your classroom, if you're busy studying, if you're in matric, we are praying for you. For the parents, even more. Lord Jesus, help them. What would it look like when you go into an office environment and you come out of a space of being made whole and secure? What would your marriage, your dating look like? If it comes out of not just me and being satisfied myself, but being made whole and secure, what will South Africa look like if we had governments and teachers and politicians and principals? They are made whole and secure. Wouldn't that be a different picture altogether? And it starts here. Because I love numbers, I wanted to share with you some stats. The average lifespan of an electronic device obviously changes according to which electronic you're speaking about. But a laptop, it's 4 years. 4 years is more or less the lifespan of a laptop, right? Do you want to make the comment? Like, for a Mac, it's less. You pay double, but it's less. Woo! And all the apples. Users got touch. Don't worry, there is more coming your way if you got touch for that one. Television, 10 years. Smartphones, 2 to 3 years, unless it's an Apple. If it's an Apple, apparently that's longer. Can neither disagree nor confirm. We're not advertising Apple, people. Computers, 3 years. Microwave, 7 years. Especially if you don't throw it to your spouse, then they last longer. Photocopier, 8 years. DVD players, 5 years. And if you don't know what a DVD player is, you should be at Kids Life. Not here. Okay, I'm like, Dad, what is a DVD player? You should be at Kids Life. There's a certain age for people being here. The average expectancy of life in South Africa for a male, I want to remain on my notes. Lord Jesus, this is so difficult. It's 59 years. In 2021, was 59 years. And for a female, obviously, it's higher. It's 64. In 2021, not much longer. The females are married, 64. Not married, 70 to 80. Woo! I told you the naughty group came to the second service, and don't worry, we do have a therapy counselor that speaks to us together, in case that you think we're in trouble. Well, no, if we can laugh about that, we shouldn't. But in 2024, let's remain in the notes. In 2024, it went up. That's the good news. For males, it went up to 63 years old. And for females, went up to 69 years old. Which is, yeah, you know, the Christian thing now is you want to clap. Don't clap. Don't clap. Still very low. This is still very low. The point is, this is life expectancy, and if you're close to that life expectancy and you have passed it, you should have a praise party. If you are not, maybe it's time to put things in place. Can I just say, as I said on the first service, this is a service to the community because we deal with this a lot. If you are closer to the time or not, have your affairs in order. Have a will, have a plan, funeral plan if you want to. Have your affair in order for the sake of the people that you leave behind. That was a serious note because we deal with so many situations where you didn't think. No one wakes up today thinking, oh, today I'm going to die, right? Hopefully. So let's just make sure that we are good stewards of what God has given us. And interesting enough, the main cause of death are natural causes. The main natural cause of death, it's diabetes and heart diseases. Which, as we dig onto being whole today, it will be very interesting to see how that plays out on what God is saying for us of being made whole. 1 Thessalonians 5 verse 23 says, now may the God of peace himself sanctify you through and through, that is separate you from profane and vulgar things, make you pure and whole and damaged, consecrated to him, set apart for his purpose, and may your spirit and soul and body be kept complete and be found blameless at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. It is so important for us as Christians to understand that when we speak about wholeness, it's not something that we face every day in our society. Something that is broken gets thrown away. Previous generations will keep it for parts, will store it in the garage for one day, kind of things. But this generation, if something breaks, you get a new one. That's just how it's done. I'm not saying you shouldn't. You should declutter your house. But what I'm saying is maybe sometimes we treat our lives, our spiritual life, our bodies, and so on with the same attitude. Something that is broken is either going to get thrown away or just covered. We don't go to the doctor saying, what did you come for? A checkup. We go to the doctor normally when we are in trouble, right? So maybe we need to come to Jesus, and made whole is an encouragement for us as a church to come to Jesus before we're in trouble and say, God, there's an area in my life that needs healing. There's an area in my life that needs your touch, and I'm going to take ownership of that. I'm not going to wait until someone points it out. I'm going to take ownership because we are all broken. The main idea is that we can recognize the broken areas on our lives. If we can recognize those broken areas in our lives and bring them to Jesus, that will be the first step to being made whole. If you live on denial, you're not going to experience wholeness. If you keep blaming someone else on something else, you're not going to experience wholeness. Wholeness can only be experienced when you come to Jesus and surrender those areas to Him and allow Him to heal you. Now, in these areas, there's 4 areas I want to highlight, 4 areas that we have as humans, 4 areas that we share on a website. When the website asks you, are you a robot? And you have to click, no, I'm not a robot. These 4 areas, you should click, no, I'm not a robot. Just pointed it out there for someone that needed that moment of revelation. But there's 4 areas that we share, and 4 areas where this brokenness can manifest, can show. And it will be important for us to recognize that, pay attention, and do something about it. The first one is we are physical. We have a body. And our body uses our senses to experience life. The second one is we are emotional. Our emotions are many times byproduct of what we think. Some of us are more emotions than thought, but that's okay. We are rational. We have been given the ability to think. Again, some of us more to a degree than others. But because it's not a marriage counseling session, we're not going to go into that. And the last one is we are behavioral. We are people that can choose how to behave. So let's dig into those 4 areas and find out how these plays a role into our wholeness. So number 1, our bodies. We have a physical body, and as I say, most of us notice when something is wrong or go to the doctors when we notice something is wrong. We wait until we experience some kind of pain. When you go and see a doctor and he says or she says, how can I help you? Normally you're not just like, oh, I just came because I'm a good citizen. I want to look after my body, just doing a checkup. Nothing is wrong, right? Normally there's a symptoms that we want to point out. There's something that is not functioning. There's something that is hurting, especially if you're close to that life expectancy, the knees and the back and all those kind of things and the bones and, all these kind of hassles that we have to go through, and we go to the doctor and we tell them that. But we have been given a physical body, and being part of being a good steward, as Primrose mentioned on our giving, is also looking after our body. It's also not waiting until our bodies run down to go to the doctor. It's also not just go to the Google doctor or the YouTube doctor of life, which is sometimes the worst thing that you can actually do. You go into Google, and I have said it multiple times, you put 1 symptom and you could have cancer, you could be pregnant, it's amazing what you can find out there. Don't do that. Just go to a real doctor, because looking after our body, it's part of being a good steward. Physical health, rest, recreation, sleep, exercise, diet, sexual activity. And all the men in the house agree very strongly. In brackets, when you are married, in covenant with God, as God created it to be. And all the young people were like, oh man, that's so close. It was close, but it wasn't. In other words, a ring on both fingers. There's a commitment. Then sexual activity, stress and hormonal shifts can all affect us, which is why important that we look after our bodies. When we have a small kid or a young kid and we see them, they're struggling, they're crying, normally our first couple of questions are, is the baby hungry? Or is it time to go to sleep, right? in general, with adults, you gotta go back to that same basic principle. When you find yourself like you're not functioning properly, you are crying, things are not making sense. Have I eaten properly? Have I slept properly? It is so silly, but it's going back to the basics of what God has given us. And can I just mention this? A lot of us can recognize when our knee hurts, we're going to the doctor, when our back hurts, when we have a tummy ache, and then we go to the doctor and we look for help. The brain is also part of our body. If your brain is not functioning properly, and I'm talking specifically about mental health, it is also a part of your body that needs to be looked after, go to the doctor and be treated just as you would treat your knee. Let's don't become over spirituals that now we don't want to deal. No, it's part of the body. It's a holistic approach that it wasn't created by people that thought yoga and yin and yang. It was created by God. Saying my body, mind, and soul all coming together with your spirit to be made whole. Amen. Romans 12 verse 1 speak about, therefore I urge you brothers, the naughtiness. Therefore I urge you brothers in view of God's mercy to offer your bodies as living sacrifice. That is our worship. Part of our bodies is how we worship Jesus. If your body is not in a good state, and I'm not talking about being skinny or not, I'm talking about the wholeness of your body, then you can't be a good steward of what God has given you. So number one is bodies. Number two, emotions. Emotions are more than, I'm going to stick to my notes. Emotions are more than just what we feel. They actually have a substance. In our bodies, you have a molecule that produces chemicals. So when you have a good thought and your emotion is good, you produce a chemical in your body that is good. So you feel good. Like when you exercise, not while you're exercising, only after. You know? While you're exercising, you're dying. And normal people will be dying and hating every breathing moment. But afterwards, you feel good. You produce good chemicals. When you are having negative thoughts, they produce negative chemicals, and that affects your body. It's an emotion. So it's not just, oh, I feel bad. You gotta go and check why you're feeling like that, because it plays a role. These bad chemicals are actually so bad for your body, they can actually destroy healthy cells. So a statistic says that 85% of our current illness are the result of our body, of our thought thinking, of our thought process. 85% of our illness are related to the way that we think. And now we're all like, oh, because it's a new move. No, this is what God said in the beginning, in Genesis, which is we're not that good at listening to what He said. Proverbs 23 verse 7 says, for as he thinks in his heart, so is he. If you are having a good thought, so you are. That's why when your emotions are connected to your thinking. Now, the ability of expressing emotion is not something that comes naturally to us. And if when you were a child, in your childhood, you were not encouraged to express emotions, you might have learned to suppress those emotions. As an adult, you are going to act the same way. That's why so many of us feel uncomfortable when the word emotion comes out. Some of us like literally feel like there's something. We start counting the minutes about how long is this message going to last. Because we are not used to or comfortable on speaking about it. The whole idea of wholeness has very much to do with being self-aware. Not partner aware or kids aware. Because many of us, if I ask you how your kids' emotions, you will give me a breakdown and you know exactly what's happening with your kids. If I ask you about your spouse, you will give me a breakdown and tell me exactly. Self-awareness. Your emotions. How are your emotion? How is your body doing? So we're not all the time able to express the variety of emotions that we possess, because there isn't just one emotion, two emotions. You know, a couple of years ago, 20, 30 years ago, we knew about happy, sad, angry, happy, sad, mad. Those were kind of like my standards. But there's hundreds of different emotions that we possess. I shared it with the first service. So when we just got married, my husband used to, if we were having an argument of a difference of opinion, which is a nice way of saying we were fighting. So we were having a different opinion. He would say like, why are you angry? And then there's something that just in my brain. It must be the Spanish Latin thing. Let's blame it on that. They just click in, and I was like, I am not angry. But if you want me to show you what I look like when I'm angry, I can do that. As a service of clarity to you, this is not me being angry, this is me being frustrated. There's other emotions in the spectrum of emotions. Are you angry? No. I'm frustrated. I am tired. I'm actually disappointed. There is power of learning our emotions. We're not going to go through them now, but you need to recognize what are the emotions that you are feeling because they play a role in you. There's three main negative emotions. They are very common and very connected to what we feel today. And as we mention them, you probably will be like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's happening. So these three we're going to highlight. The first one is anxiety. Anxiety has to do with the fear, the worry, the concern, the nervousness, the panic. Anxiety is caused from us having a uncertainty whether we're going to reach a goal or not. So a lot of us have anxiety in January because we don't know what the year is going to look like, especially if your 2024 didn't finish like 10 out of 10. You start January, you're like, whoa, do I want to say this is my year? Not really. We have anxiety because we don't know if we're going to reach our goals. It causes anxiety. If you heard what Pastor John was saying last week, when we choose to meet our needs in the creation rather than the creator, it gives us anxiety. Because the creation, husband, for example, let's use you since we're in the marriage topic, the creation cannot satisfy my need of love, purpose, and value like the creator can. He's gonna fail because he's human. So the moment that he fails, it causes anxiety in me. So you need to make sure that you go back to what we spoke about the first week, how to meet those needs with the creator. That's why we have so many people doing people pleasing. Because we just don't know, are you going to like me or not? So it gives me anxiety. I need to make sure that you like me, so I'm going to do everything that you say so that you can just like me. I say that very fast. Guilt. Self-condemnation, self-disapproval, fear, sadness, defensiveness, desperation. Guilt is caused by an unreachable goal. When we set goals and we don't reach them, you set in January a goal about going to the gym, eating healthy. December comes and the scale tells you you did not eat healthy and you did not go to the gym. Now you feel guilty. So in January, you will make decisions based on that guilt that this is the year where I'm gonna eat healthy and go to the gym. There is two types of guilt. There is the guilt connected to what you did, a mistake that you did. So like, oh, I broke something, so I feel guilty. It's a mistake I did. And the leading of that will be, I say sorry and I change my behavior. A whole topic on when you keep saying sorry and not changing behavior, but we're not going to tackle that. The second guilt is when you associate what you did with who you are. And no longer I made a mistake, I become the mistake. I am a mistake. That brings a whole different umbrella of emotions, and it tickles on that. It kind of makes us react in a way and acting in a way that we're going to constantly try to make up for us being a mistake. Perfectionist people know a lot of our unreachable goals. We know that in our nature we cannot be perfect or not make mistakes, right? It is obvious. Yet here we are every day trying to be perfect on everything that we do. There's a lot of silence on that point. Let's move to the next one. Anger, frustration, irritation, bitterness, jealousy, resentment, sadness, fear, even depression can fall into this. Anger is what we experience when we feel a block goal. For example, your 2-year-old toddler wants to have a lot of ice cream for supper. You are blocking that goal from happening. Therefore, his reaction or her reaction is going to be anger, because you are between the ice cream and me. A teenager wants to go party on a Friday in an environment that you know is not safe for them. And then they ask you, and you as a parent say, some of you are still thinking, well, it depends. It's a no. The answer is no. The teenager It's not going to react as a thank you so much, mom and dad, for looking after me. Wow, what a godly pair of parents I have. My goodness, that I am so blessed to have people that care for me and they worry about me. I might not understand it now, but I am so grateful. No. Their reaction is anger. You are blocking me from having fun. So they get angry. A lot of us feel like our goals have been blocked, whether our college is blocking our goals because they're better than us, or our boss doesn't like us, so they're blocking our goals, or our teachers don't like, whatever. And then your reaction is anger because you feel that person is blocking you from achieving that goal. It is important that we understand our emotions because we only can handle them properly when we understand them. So there is a right way of handling your emotions. The first thing will be to face them. Don't hide them, don't avoid them, face them. The second one will be to feel them. Again, you don't have to deny them, you don't have to camp on them, but you have to feel them. And the third one is to express them. I know a lot of us have a preconceived idea of what therapy is about, but can I just tell you that not all of us need to go and see a therapist. Some of us do. Let the Holy Spirit speak to you there. Some of us do, but if you don't, sometimes you just need that accountability person. If you're a female, if you're a male, with a male, because mix and match doesn't work well, that you can actually just open your heart and say, I am feeling this, and I don't think it's all right. And allow them to pray for you, to sit with you, and to just be aware of your feelings. But you have to express them. Emotions are generally the first thing to appear and the last one to go. And everybody that has a angry wife can agree. They take long to go, those emotions. That's why you have to work beyond the emotion and find out where does the emotion come from. Like I say, connected to the thoughts, which is where we're going. Number 3 are thoughts. So we have our body, we have our emotions, and we have our thoughts. God created us with the ability to think. Again, some of us are not making use of that. But God has given us the ability to think. I will defend you though. If you are 25, under 25, you get a free pass just for today. Because your front lobe, which is what helps you to make rational decisions and think about consequences and so on, is still being developed. So under 25, we'll pray for you, we'll clap you when you need a clap, we'll speak to you and so on, but you get off the hook. Over 25, yeah, but you like on your own. They like, no, because over 25, that is developed. You have the ability to think. Before 25, you are using the back of your brain to think, which where all your emotions are. That's why certain things sound like a good idea. And then you look back 10 years and you're like, what was I thinking? You were not thinking. That's why your parents, one of the therapists, guy, lady, preacher, I don't know. I was listening to a whole bunch of podcast this week, so I can't remember who it was, but she was saying, you are that front lobe for your kids. They're not going to like you. But trust me, that's your place. As a parent, you are the front lobe for your kid to protect them. When they develop it, your work is done. And then they still need us, but your work is done. We have the ability to think. But the enemy knows that. And not every thought that comes to our brain is actually a good thought. Just because God gave us the ability to think doesn't mean that the enemy is not using that against us. If you heard the message last week, when Eve was in the garden and the enemy came to her, he didn't come with an open schedule. Okay, my idea is that you sin because I really want to break up the relationship between you and Jesus. So this is what I'm thinking. He didn't. He just planted a seed in a way of thought. Does it really stay? Is it really what's going to happen? Eve was given the ability to think and then decide. She should have thought about that and said, well, this is not a good idea. She could have run to someone at that point. Adam was the only one around and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And then Adam would have sorted her out and say, well, what you're thinking is stupid because that's just not the God that we know. So don't listen to that thought. Instead, she allowed that thought to camp on her brain and it became a doubt, and that doubt became her actions. But it started as a thought. Many of our issues come as a thought that we allow to camp. It becomes an action, and then we have problems. Romans 1 verse 25 says they traded the truth about God for a lie. It is so important for us to understand when we are thinking that everything that we are thinking might not be a truth. And our truth is only found in God. Do you remember that time when you were 13 and you were thinking that high school wasn't really a big deal and that you can just fail and you will be fine? Maybe it was a time when you were 16 and you were thinking that, I don't know, emo was the way to go and everything black and you should, like, it looks so cool, and you look back on the pictures and you're like, just because we are thinking something doesn't mean it's right. It's just a thought. In Ephesians 6 verse 12 says, for we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against the evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in dark world, against evil spirits in heavenly places. We are not fighting against people. So maybe we should stop fighting with people and fight what's happening in the spiritual. Those thoughts, where are they coming from? Whether it is in your head, on your kid's head, on your husband, where are those thoughts coming from? Because God has given us the ability to think. And the last one is our behavior. Our behavior is a directly result of what we believe. If you believe that exercise is good for you, you're going to behave in a way that exercise is good for you. If you are saying, I believe that exercise is good for me, and you're not walking, running, using a treadmill, and I don't know, there's many different, playing paddle, I like it better. Then you are not really believing that, because behavior and belief go hand in hand, right? I believe study is a good thing for me because I want to pass my trip without stress. Therefore, I'm spending all my time scrolling on my phone on TikTok and Netflix. They don't align. If you believe something, it's going to show in what you behave. God designed us with the ability to choose how we behave. Such an important truth and so underestimated. God has given us the ability to choose. Pastor John spoke about it again last week. You have the freedom to choose. Sometimes we act like there's no other ways. I'm angry and I have to react this way. Again, I used to say that to my husband on the first couple of years of marriage. I'm like, you made me angry. That's it. You unlock, this is literally how I felt. He unlocked that door and the monster is out. You can't just shove that monster, say sorry and shove that monster in. And don't even suggest to pray, because then. I know, I am fully aware of what Jesus does in my heart. The moment that he says pray, I know I have to stop being angry and I have to repent and I have to be even tempered. I'm not doing that. We are not praying. We are solving this any other way. That's how I felt. But I was given the choice of how to behave. I'm still given the choice of how to behave. That's what when we normally say how you drive, how you speak, how you react. It is just so much easier to blame it on someone else, isn't it? Yeah, but they say, and they made me, and they drove in front of me like that, and they, again, under 25, 100%, had a hard life. I'm not minimizing what you went through or the trauma, not at all. What I'm saying is you can't carry that trauma with you, that brokenness with you wherever you go, hurting other people, and then making it like, oh, you did this to me. Like it was, you chose, I have no choice on the doing. It's just like, no, we have all been given the ability to choose. And the Bible tells you, even you can choose life and you can choose death. I encourage you to choose life, but you choose. We have been given the ability to choose. In Genesis 2, we see how God gives clear direction to Adam and Eve. It says, multiply, look after the garden, look after the animals. You can eat whatever you want, work, have fun, but the one tree, don't touch. They had a choice. They were not made in robots, like if you do this, it will shock you. And it was just a choice. And they chose wrong, and now we face those consequences. But every day in life, we get to choose how we behave. And knowing that will make the difference between us having a society, having a church, having family that actually own their choices or blaming someone else. I'm either going to own that this is my reaction and it came from me, or I'm going to blame it on my spouse and my kids, which they can drive you nuts sometimes. but yet you still have the choice. And that is so powerful. As children of God, we have been given the choice, yet we act like we don't have it. We have been given the choice to be made whole. Now, the practical way that I will encourage you to do this, it's going to come on the screen. And again, I want to encourage you to take a picture of this because you probably won't remember all the steps when you leave this place. But the preaching will be online on Monday or Tuesday. This is a practical model. It's called the ABCD model. The psychology has put together to explain how we connect what we think, what we feel, and how we behave. The pastoral counselor that we follow and that we see has added the letter E, so you might not find it when you look for it on internet as such as this one, because of her studies and so on. So we're going to go quickly through this. Can I just encourage you today more than any other Sunday, not just to be hearers of the word, oh, that was nice, or like go home and give this to your spouse and your kids and your neighbors and be like, oh, you should have been at church. If you wanted them at church, you should have invited them to church and brought them to church. They're not here, therefore you are. So let's take ownership on this is my homework. Not my spouse, not my kids. It is great. We do this a lot with our kids, but we don't let them just do it. We sit and do it. So step A, which is the first letter, is called activate an event. And it's anything and everything that happens on your everyday life. There's always events and things happening in your life, right? You drive and there's roadblock, power goes out, all the beautiful things in South Africa that, you know what? South Africa is a great country for you to over and over explain this. That's all I'm going to say. They really make it practical for us to be made whole in Jesus in this time. The A is an activated event, any situation that you can be in. So, for example, you have a meeting and you walk in a room and there's a room full of people. So it's not a positive event, it's not a negative event, it's not a traumatic event, it's just an event. You walk into a mall maybe and there's a room full of people, you walk into the first day of work or you go into the first day of school, last year matric, you walk into it. So not positive, not negative, just an event. The B stands for the belief or thought that you have when you face that event. So I walk into a church for the first time, it's full of people, that's the event. The B stands for the belief. What are you telling yourself when you walk into a situation? Because we can all walk into this church and tell ourselves very different things. That's why you can leave this place and think this is the best thing ever, or I hate it, I'm never coming back. Regardless of what I'm speaking and preaching and the presence of God being here, there is something that you're going to tell yourself about this event. And that is the belief. What story are you telling yourself? So you could say, I walk in, oh, I really like the vibe, they're a bit loud. Or you could tell yourself, no one greeted me, so I don't belong here. What are you telling yourself? We were watching a movie this week about an airport, and it was so funny because this policeman has to stop certain specific people because it's an airport and his job is the security, right? And every person that is being stopped is throwing in his face, oh, you are stopping me because of this. So he stopped one person and he says, oh, you're stopping me because I'm white. And then he stops the next person, they're like, oh, you're stopping me because I'm Mexican, I look Latin, Hispanic people, drugs and all that kind of stuff. And then he stopped the next person, they're like, oh, you're stopping me because I'm black. And then he stopped the next person and, oh, you're stopping me because I'm young and I'm full of tattoos. And then the next person, they show like 6 different people, same situation, different filter. You can come into the same situation with a different filter and say, oh, you are doing this because. It's the story that you tell yourself. See, consequent emotion, which comes direct from what you're telling yourself. You walk into a room full of people. I tell myself, I don't like it. They can see I'm Spanish. I don't fit in. They're all Afrikaans. I don't speak their language. And then what I tell myself, that emotion, now I feel insecure. I feel nervous. I feel shy. I don't fit in. I want to leave. Those are the consequence emotions that I feel or what I'm telling myself. And the last one, dictative behavior, is how we respond to those emotions. So I walk into a room full of people. I feel like I don't fit in. They're all white and look Afrikaans. I'm not. I don't speak that language. I don't My emotions is I don't want to be here. Therefore, my detecting behavior will be I don't want to engage. I don't want to go jump in. I don't want to say, hey, hello, what's your name? I don't want to make eye contact. I just remain myself, my circle, which makes me unapproachable. The last one that this counselor has added is effect. Because what do we do? Our behavior causes an effect on people. Again, same room. Let's say that you are on the other side of what I'm telling myself and what I'm experiencing. You are ready to receive whoever comes and you see this person not making eye contact, not wanting to talk, seriously nervous. In this church, our approach as partners will be, hello, how are you doing? How can I help you? Would you like to find out about the cafe? Let's go and sit down. In general, what will happen is you look unapproachable. I'm not talking to you. I'm going to the next person. So my behavior had an effect on other people. And then what happened is that circle keeps on going and going and going. Because now the fact that no one comes and speaks to me, which was an effect of how I express myself, becomes again my event. That I don't belong here and I'm not coming again because all of that just happened. We choose what we tell ourselves and then we believe it. And then we find data that will actually affirm what I'm believing. You see, I told you. I told you those white people. I told you those Afrikaans people. They're not nice. They're not welcoming. We get to choose how to see our life through this lens. And teach our kids and our spouse too. But taking ownership of maybe when I walk into the room, I came with all my filters and I didn't give much of a chance to people to actually get to know me or get to know them. I just assumed that they were white. And I'm hopping on this because I'm not South African, so the Afrikaans thing was a big deal for me. And I asked Jesus, I don't want to marry an Afrikaans person. He was like, okay, I'll meet you halfway. He's 50% Afrikaans. 50% Portuguese, which was the next requirement. I don't want to marry a Portuguese person. You want to tell Jesus who you want to marry? He's like, joke's on you. This was my perceived idea, my filter, because I'm not part of them and I don't speak Afrikaans. They are cliquey and they are this and they are that. My perception. Therefore, I became approachable and I just didn't want to. I didn't want to talk to them. But then when I push beyond that, I find some Afrikaans people are really lovely. Okay, a lot of Afrikaans people are really lovely. I should have stuck to my note. That was not on the notes. You can only be made whole when you can actually own your brokenness. My brokenness was I feel insecure because English is not my first language. Now, they want me to speak English, they also speak another language. Like, whoa. Yeah. To own the fact that if I'm going to live in South Africa, there's more cultures here. And I don't get. Therefore, I need to love like Jesus did. And when Jesus died on the cross, he died for all of us. Which we speak. Was it right? Were they cliquey? Were they, well, yes and no. But that's not the point because this model and wholeness is about me, my wholeness. So the challenge now is in your court. Will you carry on, continue life blaming your spouse for making you angry or your kids or your boss or the country for making your life miserable, or will you take ownership of our brokenness and our choices and start the journey of being made whole? Because that can only be done when you allow yourself to open that door of your life. There's that one cover in your house, that one room that no one gets to see or touch because all the nonsense gets pushed in. Right? So it is your choice when you open the door to Jesus and say, okay, Jesus, I'm ready. Let's speak about my brokenness. Not my parents. Let's speak about my brokenness, my perceptions, my assumptions, my filters, my thoughts, my emotions, my behavior. Let's speak about that and let's start the journeys of being made whole, because that is Jesus' plan. Jesus' plan was always wholeness. And it remains wholeness. Not just for those 59 years. Can we just live a whole life, a full life, on a Monday? Not just wait until Friday comes, but on a Tuesday. Not just wait until December, holidays come, but in January. Can we be an example of what is being made whole looks like as Christians loving Jesus? That is the challenge.